let's get going with our classes. I mean, with the class. I have some games from some of my recent tournaments. I have a couple of positions that I wanted to show today. I had a horrendous tournament that I played over the weekend, probably one of the worst tournaments of my life. And but still, there's some parts of the game that helps us learn something. So I found an interesting bit in that game. This is one of my last games. Actually, I played this just 2 days ago, and I end up losing in time trial play by making some really horrible blunder. Wait, Evan is saying I can't hear you. Is everyone able to hear me? Let me try to move my microphone closer. Yes, the rest of them are able to hear me. So Evan, it could be from your end. You might want to figure out the audio setting from your end. Okay, so like I said, ups and downs. So one of the things about being a chess player, you learn to lose. Yeah, at some point you get some perspective. I have one of the things that I took from the tournament is what happened. You know, we kind of do some postmortem and try to figure out what is going on. But that aside, let's jump into our actual content. So I want to talk about, of course, we'll do some calculation, we'll do some evaluation. We will also talk about some practical aspects. I like to discuss games that I recently played because I can talk about what I was thinking about during the game. I can talk about what I missed, what I saw. So it's a little bit easier, right? It's nicer to have that practical discussion. So that's the reason I brought it up. So this is the position we want to discuss today. And we'll go through the moves as we go through the game and figure out different points of the game and discuss that as we go. But let's go ahead and get started. First question in chat is that what do we see that, I mean, actually there's something that I usually talk about before we start calculating. If anyone who's been in my class before, maybe let's see if anyone can tell me, what do you do when I give you the position first? Or when you look at any position first, what do we do first? How do you evaluate, Alexander? How do you do that? Exactly. Evaluation is kind of important because you cannot make any things. Eric says determine who's better. That's right. How do you do that though? Count material is a good place to start, Eric. So you have, of course, basic things like king safety and material. Look at weaknesses and advantages. Overall, what I like to do is assess the position by looking at the factors, right? I call them factors. You can call it whatever you want. Basically, you want to look through all the important factors that you think might affect the game, affect the position. And then, of course, it's always a constant juggling, right? Because in some game, maybe there is a factor that's very, very important. In some game, that's absolutely not. In one of the games, maybe your double pawn is going to play a big role. In another game, it's not. So obviously, these factors are fighting each other for importance. And even within the same game, it keeps changing. Suddenly, there might be the most important factor at this point. In a few minutes or a few moves, something changes. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's talk about factors. When I say factors, like I don't want any moves. I do not want to hear any moves. I want you to tell me what you see. Basic observation. If you want to speak, of course, you can raise your hand or do the exclamation point in your chat and I will call on you. If you just want to type it in chat, do that. Okay, just for now, I'm going to switch the chat to just host and co-host. So we can just directly talk to me. In the end, we can always open up the chat. Okay, so this is what I'm getting. I'm getting that white has center, but black has c5. White has pace advantage. Very interesting. What else? Anything else? Black's h3 pawn is a little annoying, apparently. Okay. White's queen and knight are targeting the black king. White has a passed pawn. Okay, fair enough. What else can we say? Anything else? You get the feeling that white is better. Okay, we'll get to that. Equal material. That's right. So, okay, fair enough, right? So this is what I looked at, of course. I mean, of course, I'm not doing this in the middle of the game. Since it's part of the game already that I kind of know what is going on. The E pawn is definitely a very strong pass pawn, right? And that's something that's there. And the opposite side castling. So If you have not thought about this, or if you thought about it but didn't type it in chat, that's okay. But if you didn't think about this, I would say you have to take a second to see this. These are important factors that come to my mind that you should have definitely seen, right? Opposite side castling is going to definitely make an impact. Clearly, black is, pushing some pawns and attacking the king, and white is trying to do the same with the queen and knight, right? So definitely both sides want to attack the king in some sense. And of course, we talked about the pass pawn. Now, also, we see pawn structure in general. There's a double pawn, which is the reason white even has this strong pass pawn, yeah? Otherwise, I would have to create the pass pawn. One more thing is black has a kingside majority, and white has majority in the center. So that's kind of a full look at some of the basic things. But there is one more thing that I really liked. I was playing white here. I just liked a fact that there is something bad for black. Tell me I felt like I'm in a better position because of this. Let's see if anyone can guess this particular factor. I mean, let's assume that both players want to attack the king, which is probably one of the most important factors, opposite side castling, right? Well, moves are there, yes. That's definitely there, Eric. Yep, Austin May, I like what you said. This is what was making me happy. This bishop is kind of awkward, right? I mean, it's not like it doesn't have any potential. It is definitely awkward. And the queen is also awkward. Typically, black's attack should be something like just push the pawn and open up the situation, yeah? But black is just so awkwardly placed that he has to regroup. So, Evan, I didn't give a specific topic today. Let's call it practical play. Usually, I like to talk about some positions or games that I recently played because I can discuss what I was seeing and what I was missing. And it's a good exposure. That's the reason. So anyways, so the queen and bishop kind of stuck, right? And it's making the flow, black's kingside attack or pawn storm, very difficult. So I was kind of happy about it. When I was in this position, I was like, okay, this is not bad because black's attack is going to be a little slow. I mean, I'm not sure what white is going to do for the attack either, but at least I know that black is not all over white's king. I have the strong pass pawn and I have some potential threats on b7 and c6, yeah? Okay, now that we have done this, now let's jump into calculation. Now remember this is very, very important that you all do this before you start calculating moves. So what would we play here? Let's do some candidate moves. Let's start our calculation. Okay, Eric Leo has a very direct continuation. Austin May. Okay. I think Lyndon Lee has something, and most importantly, Eric Feng. Eric Feng has given me a very interesting variation. I'll give it a few more seconds for all of you to talk about this. Okay, Austin May, that's right. So Queen B4 was considered, I think, by Austin initially, and then he rejected it because of Rook B5. Fair enough, Rook B5 is quite annoying, yeah? Aradhya's looking at Knight to B3, okay? So B4 has been considered, E6 has been considered, Knight to C6 has been considered, Queen to B3, well, actually Queen to B3 is not possible, Knight to B3 has been considered, and what else? King to H1 has been considered, C4 has been considered. Okay. So let's start with what is actually really forcing, yeah? When this happened, this is the first move I calculated of all of this. So let me ask all of you, which move do you think is the most forcing of all of this? There are actually two moves I would say might come back to it, but which move would you really, really calculate first? All right, pretty much unanimously, most of you are going for Knight takes C6. Agreed. That's very forcing. It's a sacrifice, opening up the position. Why not? Yeah. E6 has been given. I'll tell you, I was not a big fan of E6 in the game. Conceptually. This is why I say do your factors before you start calculating, right? Conceptually, how can I reject E6? Tell me. Why? What would I not like about a move like E6? What would black play? And what is it that It unconnects the pawn, Austin. That's fair enough. But that pawn is pretty strong if I'm going to start pushing it up. And then knight takes c6 might become even more stronger, right? So queen e7 and regroup. Okay, that's definitely one possibility. But there's another kind of regrouping that made me against it. Alexander Wang, that's right. And Alice Lee, correct. Bishop f8. So yeah, queen e7 is also possible, but simply I was not so happy after I see the bishop can go to f8, and then maybe I can reroute to d6. Remember how that bishop was not supposed to do much in there? Now, okay, I'll be on e7 as a blockade, but I can also go to d6, and suddenly my king side might be more dangerous. So if I have to play g3 or something like that, I feel like I'm giving a real route, right? Right now I can go bishop f8, but guess what? No future. This bishop is totally neutralized by my pawn structure. Very awesome pawn structure. The only way this bishop can become active is somewhere here, right? I'll have to come back in through this side, but it's almost impossible with my rooks. So that's the reason e6 conceptually not a big fan. So I'm going to ask all of you to calculate c4, because this is the first move I did calculate, because it seems tactical, guys. That's why I think you should calculate this, because there is a tactical point to c4. Obviously, black will take on d4, or I think black has to take on d4. What's the next follow-up move? And what is the tactical point we can calculate? It's very straightforward, simple calculation. If possible, give me a variation. What happens after c4? Fair enough, Angela, that's basically what white wants to do. I would say actually a different square than that one, but okay, yeah, that is also reasonable. Good point, Alice. That's the main point. Queen b4, now black cannot play rook b5. Correct. Queen b4 or queen b3, guys. I think all of you, a lot of you have given me in chat. The idea of c4 is that I want to play queen b4 or queen b3 hitting b7. And the only way to save that b7 pawn is to push, which allows knight takes c6, which is forking the rooks, right? I think you can dismiss this very quickly. I'm not going to give you more than 2 minutes. Yeah, Austin May, I think I'm going to just simply agree with the variation you gave. Ryo, I don't think that is required though. I think that is a little too far-fetched. You don't need to do that. It might still be actually possible, but I don't think it is necessary at all. Eric Feng, I would say no. If black is going to do that, white would be happy, extremely happy. That's not the reason. So Merrick, I like that move, but that didn't really bother me that much compared to, I don't know, a different kind of move, but let's see. What else? B5. I think B5 is also very risky. B6 is probably more natural after queen B3 or queen B4. Okay, so I'm going to first refute the first option quite straightforward. After takes, if I go queen to B4, I think this is easy to refute. One person already gave me, I think Austin May already gave me the refutation. Okay, let's say you go B5 or B6, I'm going to take knight takes C6, then what? Actually, B5, knight 6, you want to play rook C4, is it? Okay. Okay, that is also possible. I didn't even think about that. Maybe that's one of the ways to to deal with it. But I think the simplest thing I saw in the game, and I think that was also given here, is this move. And I felt this is simply strong, yeah? Rook d1 is also possible, but rook d1, I'm not really... So, I mean, like, I cannot eliminate these moves that quickly. For example, let's go to... wait, why is it not moving? I hope my chess base didn't freeze. Okay, oops. Pause share for a second. Okay, it came back. Good. It took me a minute, but it came back. Okay. So the reason why, I mean, rook d1 is not that clear, because if I take the rook, right? If I take on knight takes d8 and rook takes e1, queen takes e1, I mean, like, it's not so obvious. Yeah. Why is that exchange? Like, black has any clear compensation. So this is not the real problem solver, but this is a problem solver. Yeah. You play rook g4 and now you're threatening mate. I mean, g3, I don't know. I might run into rook takes g3, but also importantly, I can simply move the rook on d8 in now. I can go, I don't know, maybe rook d2 or rook d3. I mean, if you play g3, maybe rook d3. Do you think I can take this? I think I can also probably take this, yeah. But okay, let's not go into depth here. That's one of the reasons I rejected queen b4. What about queen b3? So let's say now b6. Again, you have to kind of play this because you cannot allow queen takes b7. Yep, Alice has given the point. At some point, this looked interesting, but when I find rook d3, it becomes quite annoying, yeah? I was trying some queen h3 ideas. Of course, rook g4, I could take on h3. But the point is rook d3 is very strong. I have removed myself from this fork. And I think now some rook e3, rook d2, again, all these calculations, I was trying to look through it a little bit, but then I was able to eliminate it quickly to say that this is too dangerous, yeah? Queen a4 did look interesting, but I think there are some tactical ideas there. I don't know. I don't remember exactly. Maybe something like queen e3. It's a possibility which looks super crazy because if you take, there's always rook d1 check, bishop e3 check, and rook takes f1 mate. So queen e3 is quite strong after queen a4, I think, yeah. All right, let's come back to the main position. So if c4 is not the move, the next move you have to calculate is definitely knight takes c6, yeah? I think knight b3 and b4 are also being considered. Not really so bad. But the only question I have for those who want to play it slowly with b4 or knight b3 is what exactly is white's plan? How are you going to attack? In fact, I want to do this before we go any further. Your understanding of the position starts here, right? So if white has, let's say, 4 moves, I want you to just type in 4 moves for white, no moves for black. And let's not do knight takes c6, of course. Knight takes c6, if we play, we have to calculate that. We're not going to do that. But let's say white plays 4 moves to build an attack. I want to know what you're going to do. And let's say black has 4 moves for an attack. What can black do? And we want to see what exactly is very dangerous or threatening, and then we can decide. Okay, so Lyndon, you've given me something, but I don't think it's so dangerous for black at the end of 4 moves. If at the end of 4 moves, you don't create a super strong threat, I would say that it's not that promising. I mean, it's a little scary, but not that scary. Okay, let's go to Austin May. Austin May is like, okay, that's a conceptual idea, but what exactly is white going to do, Austin May? You have to tell me that. Okay, so Royo, you're saying let's go positionally. Let's not actually launch an attack on the king. And you just want to defend a little bit and play slowly, okay? Okay, one of the ideas, fair enough, yeah. All right, so a lot of the other ideas are going to knight to b3 followed by c4. So, okay, let's say you achieve knight to b3 and c4 and the rook actually goes back. What happens next? Because knight c5 might still run into rook takes d4. By the way, there might be some exchange sacrifice too, which you have to worry about. But you also have to worry about simply going back. If I go back rook d7, rook c1, rook c2 after d5 takes. Okay, you want to play rook to c1. Okay, knight b3, c4, e6, knight c5. Eric Fang has given me something like that. Okay, fair enough. So let's now go to black, guys. Let's go. I want you to tell me if black has 4 moves, what are the 4 moves that black is going to do? Let's try to do the same now for black. By the way, conceptual thinking is very useful in several situations, but sometimes precise calculation is required. One of the things that failed me in this game or in this whole tournament was that I was missing precise calculation. So Ryo, I think your idea is there, but seems a little bit slow. I think you can improve on it. So Austin May, even after you do that, let's say I even ignore it. It's still not so scary. I want to know what the scary part is. So Angela, I think you skipped one move. You probably need to spend like 5 moves to get what you're just showing me. Aradhya, I might not take on c5? Yeah, I mean, playing on c5 doesn't make that much sense. I'll tell you why. Because your advantage is on the king side, and black doesn't even have any long-term advantage like a pass pawn or a better pawn structure. So black should clearly focus on the white king. So if I give you 4 moves for black, you have to figure out ways to attack the white king. I don't think playing positionally will help, or playing in the center. I don't think c5 can help so much. For example, if I go knight b3 after that, you're really not going to open up the file. Okay, Austin May, fair enough. You've given me like about 5 moves into that. I'm very worried about my situation, yeah? Okay, Alice Lee, I like your finally your plan. Very good, very good. I think one person has finally given me the most direct plan, which is a perfect move order, yeah? So let me show this. So remember how the problem was only this? Between the queen and the bishop, this is what the issue for black is. And if you reorganize this, then you launch an attack. And Raya, you're right. That move is also needed, but for a different plan. I think you're trying to do a different plan maybe. But so the idea is very simple. You take on g2 and you reorganize your queen and bishop. You play queen h4, you play bishop f4. That's it. Actually, white is in serious trouble if I'm able to just do this, because next move is rook h8. And then I have g5 and g4. So g5, g4, and g3 is a little slow, but everything else is happening much, much faster, right? Not only that, the other problem is I need this perfect setting. So think about what white needs to do, right? White actually has to keep an eye on e3 and d2, because otherwise this bishop will come in and he'll kill the game, right? So how do I manage to keep my rooks guarding e3 while also guarding h2? I mean, because first of all, if I play queen h4 already, there is a pin. So I cannot play rook takes g2 after queen h4. So it's very difficult for white. So you can see that black has a very concrete plan. So in some sense, I missed this. I was thinking conceptually, right? I'm like, okay, what is black going to do? Black is going to attack on the king side. I'm going to attack on the queen side. And what exactly black is going to do was required to be calculated. And I didn't do that very precisely in this game. But okay, now let's jump into our actual move. We have talked about this a lot. We know what black is about to do. Knight takes c6. So let's really jump into knight takes c6. I will give you, let's say, a couple of minutes to look at it and give me an evaluation, right? So this is what I'm looking for. I'm only giving you 2 minutes because we have done this. We have looked at this position for a while now. So you're right, Austin. It's not easy. Yeah? When you look at what exactly white's doing and what exactly black is doing, it seems to me that black has a much more clear attack with g2, queen h4, and bishop f4. All white plans that you guys gave were not equally strong, right? But however, knight takes c6 is a different story. Knight takes c6 is immediately opening up the king. Well, you're not going to checkmate the king, but you're going to get 3 pawns, and black is definitely going to be under a lot of pressure, right? Yep, white definitely has competition, but here's what it is. I need one precise line. It doesn't have to be more than 2 or 3 moves. Let's say 3 moves, okay? 3 to 4 move variation. At the end of the variation, I want a precise evaluation. So plus equals, plus minus, minus plus, whatever you want to give me. I'm going to start the timer. Let's do it for 2 minutes. But remember, this is very important that you evaluate this precisely. Conceptual thinking will help a lot. I want to see how many of you are doing that. It helped me a lot in deciding something here, but let's see. I would like every one of you to give me a variation. Remember that. It's so much better when you participate with the actual variation, because now you can go back and say, okay, this is what I decided. Why did I decide this, right? What can be different? We have about 1.5 minutes left. Okay, just a little bit more thinking. All right, guys, we're close to the time. Okay, yeah, I think that should be pretty good. All right, let's talk about what are all the things that we get. So white is much better after queen takes a6 and queen c6. Merrick, Austin is saying G6. I think, Austin, you dropped your rook on E1 in your variation. So I don't want you to go in depth. That's why it's not good to go too much in depth. Yeah. You want to keep it a little slow. I mean, a little small, because the variations have to be very precise. At this point, if you miss a single move, everything changes. So you have to be very, very precise. Okay. Eric, you have not. Eric Feng, I don't know if you gave me an evaluation. So Eric, you have given me plus equals. Okay. Angela is, I'm guessing, Angela, that you mean that white is doing really better, because if you're not sure what black is doing, right? So Aradhya, I don't think black will ever play A5. That pawn is kind of a lost cause. I would definitely not try to defend it. And I think that is, that will probably lead to much more dangerous situation for black. Okay, so, and let's see a couple more. Davis is saying queen takes C6 followed by queen takes A6, and then C4, queen B5, and just equal with perpetual checks, yeah? Okay, so that's true. Actually, if you play C4, you probably get perpetual checks. That's a good point. Alice Lee also suggested A5. I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, so now let me ask another direct question. The first thing that came to my mind when I looked at knight C6 is takes. Do I want to take queen A6, queen C6, or queen C6, queen A6? Simple question. So do I want to end up with my queen on A6 or C6? Just pick one, guys. A6 or C6, what do you like? This is where conceptual thinking helps a lot. Interesting. I'm getting A6 and C6. Davis is saying A6, Eric Leo, C6, Alice C6, Merrick is saying A6. Lyndon likes it on C6. Fair enough. Very nice. You see a nice kind of break between both the things. It's not this. These are the subtle decisions, right? It's not super obvious. But I have to say, I like my queen on C6. Right? The simple fact is that I'm going to be looking at this diagonal. And one more thing is, I think most of you kind of came to this point, is that this could be a strong threat now, right? And given that E6 and E7 is going to be a threat, my queen keeping an eye on the D5 rook might be a huge added bonus for white, right? So I decided that I want the queen on C6. When I played knight takes C6, I did play knight takes C6 in the game, by the way. And after pawn takes C6, I wanted to put the queen on C6. But here I made a bad judgment. The most direct approach is to simply take and go queen takes C6. Actually, the position is about equal. But I have to say, this is very, very difficult for black to play. I think even though the position is equal, a computer might be able to defend objectively. But I think black has a lot of practical problems. Okay, I still have to try the same kind of plan that, take and go here or something like that. But it's very tricky. And also we noticed one more thing is at some point I can always play this and start checking you for a draw if I need to. So white is actually pretty safe here. No real problems and comfortable. So instead what I did was I thought, okay, the A6 pawn was not so important and I don't need to take it right now. So I took on C6 directly and I thought, okay, I'll make a useful move right now instead of taking on A6, right? And I was really hoping that I wanted to go for an attack. So this is where I made a mistake because I was thinking conceptually and not calculating precise moves. So I went for a kingside attack with B4. If I had calculated just the pure number of moves what black is going to take, which is queen h4, hg2, queen h4, and bishop f4, I would have definitely not done this because I would have known that I'm slow. I somehow felt like black is attacking, I'm attacking, both sides can attack, let's see what happens, right? But obviously that's just not the right type of calculation in a position like this, yeah? Sorry. So in a position like this, you don't want to generalize your thinking, yeah? So again, you have to be very, very precise in calculation. So when I played B4, I'm really not counting or literally calculating what is going on either side. I'm already also a little low on time. I spent way too much time in the middle game, so I had to rush through this part. And I actually feel bad about it because I think the most interesting part of the game was right here. And I didn't have enough time. My opponent had like twice the amount of time that I needed, that I had. So here, h takes g2 followed by queen h4, I think black is completely better. But my opponent gave me a small chance. He played queen h4 first. So this clearly allows a small saving move, which I think all of you can see. What can white play? All right. I think Austin said it. Lyndon said it. I'll just give a few more seconds for others to also. Ryo, Eric, Alice, Owen. Fantastic. Yeah, it's kind of obvious. The first move that comes to my mind is G3. One more thing I initially had missed is that I can also play Queen takes G6. That was one of the things I was counting on when Queen goes to H4. But what do you think Black will play after Queen G6? Black has a very obviously strong move. Rook 5 to F7 to G7, that's possible, Alice, but it's a little slow. I think you have a lot more direct move. If I play Queen takes G6, Black has an immediate or more direct move. Yeah, taking on G2 is right there. But I was also scared of Bishop to D2. I think Austin May is giving Bishop to D2. Turns out I'm actually not that bad after Bishop to D2, but I was scared about this during the game. But actually, the computer eventually says that you can play G3 for white, and white is actually okay. But during the game, of course, I was still worried about Bishop D2 as a problem move. But yeah, the more direct move is H takes G2 again. And now you can do all the plans again. Now Bishop. Everywhere you want to do, all those attacking moves that you want to do, just make sure you take on G2 first. So white doesn't get G3, yeah? So anyway, so this is one of the reasons why even here H takes G2 was important, because after Queen H4, I played G3 and Queen G4. Okay, now comes the most interesting point of the game. And again, I was trying to make this work with very short amount of time. And I was trying to calculate what is going on, how can I win? Because this, at this point, I felt is very interesting, very double-edged. And you can all see that. Either I'm going to queen that pawn or win a rook or something, or I'm going to get checkmated. So it's kind of a very interesting position, right? What can we play here? Let's again spend about 5 minutes here, but we'll keep calculating through the chat variations. And let's see, what is the first move that comes to your mind for white? Austin May, I like the move that you're thinking about. Lyndon, I think by now you should give up on attacking the king idea. It's a little too slow. A4, B5, Rook B2 is unfortunately too slow. That's why I feel like B4 is such a waste of time in a critical point. And I did that because I was thinking conceptually. Okay, everyone else, Davis, Eric, Merrick, I'm not a big fan of going back to A6 now. I think Black has very direct threats now. Black is simply going to play F4. Seems a little too slow if I'm going to take on A6 right now, right? So, but the thing is, if you come back and you trade into an endgame, see, that's kind of odd. I was not so sure if I wanted to go back into an endgame. I know we have enough pawns on the king side on the center to manage it, but Black will have this very strong pass pawn on H3 and an extra piece. So not so clear, actually. Maybe it's possible, but in the game, I was not really trying to trade queens because it's one of the possibilities. Particularly, I wouldn't trade queens after F4 because F takes G3, H takes G3 allows the really strong H3 pass pawn. So I was not a big fan of that. Okay, most of you have given me E6. Fair enough, yeah? That's the first move you have to calculate, right? So what I want is I want an evaluation for this move. Yeah, this move, yeah. E6 is the move that can be played. How will you evaluate it? I guess the next move for Black should be kind of obvious for you to calculate. You can all type in chat if you want to, so we can make sure we are going in the right direction. I think Davis, Eric Leo, Angela, all correct. Black is going to play Lyndon, Ryo. Correct. Black is definitely going to play F4. You have to calculate F4. Okay, so Lyndon, you're going through the variation. Very nice. What happens though? Austin May, good question. That's the variation I want you to evaluate and tell me what's going on. Is white getting away or is Black killing white? Now remember this, white wins a full rook. White is only up an exchange. And also, since I did not collect the third pawn, all of that will be only for one pawn. So white will be up an exchange and one pawn, right? And Black will have a very strong attack. So we are really trying to figure out that will this work? Literally by calculating, of course. There's nothing else. Merrick, how would you evaluate that variation? I think all of you are giving me a variation. I need you to evaluate it. Well, oh yeah, that's right. You're right, Austin. Maybe it is exact equal number of pawns because black is winning a pawn on g3. Correct. So Merrick says white is winning. Okay. Okay. So let's address the first one. Eric Leo has given me something. Lyndon, I like that. That's one of the variations I'd calculated. Alice, that variation is what I calculated, but I'm not so sure if I will calculate that to be better for white. Okay. So let's see this, guys. What we have to see is e6 is met with f4. Now, actually, white has two candidate moves, right? Now, a lot of you gave me these variations, but looks like most of you did not give me the second candidate move. What is white's second candidate move? I know the first one is so obvious. Everyone gave me that. Rook e4 is not a candidate move. e6, f4, and white has a strong candidate move. Lyndon and Austin, correct. There is queen takes d5. Yeah? So first question you have to ask yourself is, did you see that? If you didn't, you have to work on that calculation, right? You have to make sure that you're seeing queen takes d5 and e7 as both possible moves and then deciding which one works best, right? Okay, now let's talk about this. Which one do you prefer? So queen takes d5, rook takes d5, e7, black, let's say, plays f takes g3, e8, queen check, assuming the black king goes to a7. That's the one position. White is trying to, of course, defend. The other position is you're playing e7, f takes g3, e takes d8, and rook takes d8. These are the two positions you're seeing. You can look at your queen position, you can look at your opponent's rook position, you can look at your opponent's king position. You can decide which one makes better sense for calculation. Okay, so e7 is better. Okay, all right. So the first point is you will end up with your queen on e8 and the black rook will be on d8. Actually, both those positions look bad for white. So your queen on e8 is not doing much compared to your queen on c6, which is doing very well defensively, looking back. In the same way, the rook on d8 won't be doing much, but the rook on d5 will be ready to swing for an attack on this side. So it's simply improving your opponent's rook and putting your queen in a bad position if you switch that around. So e7 definitely is making a lot more sense, yeah? Davis, that's a very good point. We're going to talk about it in just a second. So after e6, f4, e7, f takes g3, pawn takes d8, rook takes d8, white has a killer move. I think Merrick, you already found it. And I know Eric Lee, you also found it. I'm going to just give 30 more seconds to see if anyone else can find it. And white is actually winning. Davis, while we're doing this, why don't you calculate the variation you just suggested? I want you to evaluate that. So e6, f4, e7, f takes g3, e takes d8 check, rook takes d8. And now what does white play? Ryo, I like your move. That's the move. Aradhya, that move drops the rook. I'm going to play g takes f2 check. So Angela, I don't know if I really need to give up my rook to achieve that. Doesn't look strong. Oh, you already did that, Ryo, a few minutes ago. Okay, I didn't notice that. All right, I'm going to tell you what the move is. It's basically rook f e2, right? So let me play it out. So we have this, and after pawn takes, take back, and then this is a very strong move. So in the game, I missed this. Again, I was trying to make this work within the short time I had, and I had stopped my calculation. Well, what is the variation here? Around this point. So it takes, king takes, and this is where I had stopped. And I thought black is definitely better, which I'm correct in evaluation. Some of you evaluated this and said the king might run, but no, black has bishop e3 coming, black has h2 coming, and it's really not worth it for an exchange, right? And now think about this. The one pawn I didn't take comes back to haunt me in every position. If this pawn was not here, I would have a draw anywhere. If this pawn was on b2, and if this pawn was not on a6, I would have a draw anytime I want. And of course, I made the brilliant choice of playing b4 before taking the pawn. Practical mistakes. We all make these mistakes, right? Okay, but the move, again, like I said, is rook f e2, and it's just crushing because rook e8 is an unstoppable threat. And after pawn takes h2 check, king h1, black has nothing on the white king. So I thought this is very beautiful, defensive and offensive together, right? The rook kind of keeps an eye on the second rank, but rook e8 is just unstoppable. So, anyways, but turns out there is actually an interesting move. Black does have an interesting move. I think Linden, yeah, correct, Linden. I think you're talking about bishop e3 earlier time that doesn't work. But there is a move in this position. What move can black play? Obviously, this f4 e7 variation that we saw just doesn't work. Correct, Linden, yes. Let's give it a few more seconds to see if others can find it. Bishop g5 seems too slow, Eric Feng. I think I can play e7 because bishop takes e7, rook takes e7, and I don't see anything. Queen d1 check, I block. Yep, bishop e3 is possible right now. Very good. I'm not so sure if my opponent saw this, and I also actually didn't see this, but I think most of it, we both are actually calculating f4 after e6, at least from what I can tell. But obviously now I cannot take. Yeah, if I play rook e3, you play queen d1 and queen d2, and it looks like white is completely lost. So just to show you, rook takes e3, queen d1 check, and then it's game over. Yeah, because now I'm picking up the rook, and with that the game. So you cannot take. So what is the only move that is left? E7, correct? That's the only move I can really play. What happens after E7? Let's calculate a little bit more and then we can evaluate. What happens after E7? I guess black's move should be pretty straightforward. No one has given me a move for black after E7. Okay, Linden, that's right. Eric Feng, that's right. Simply black has to take the rook on F2. Yeah, bishop takes F2, king takes F2 is probably going to happen. Aradhya, that's correct. And now you have to evaluate that position. Because white is winning the rook back. Let me see what line you gave me, Davis. You're saying it's a wrong line. You didn't play queen d2 in your variation, Davis. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, black will probably just go f4, e takes e8 queen. So the problem with pushing e8 without taking is that you leave the rook on d5, Austin May. So that would be a little bit of a problem. Sorry, actually, first take on and then take. Sorry, f4, pawn takes and rook takes. And frankly, this looks very unclear to me. If you had asked me during the game, it's kind of unclear because white is up material, but black is really in a strong attack. So I would still call this a little unclear, but actual evaluation is about equal. So still very reasonable play for both sides. Yeah, queen f3 is the first logical move I was also calculating, but after pawn takes and pawn takes, I simply keep the queen in play, right? And the h3 pawn is very strong too. Most importantly, white's king is really weak. So I don't know if I might be able to play king g1, king h2 or king g1, king h1, depending on where the pawn is, and survive this, yeah? Okay, so in the game, I chose the safer option. Obviously, I was trying to make e6 work, and I couldn't find... so I missed rook f e2, like I said. I was more afraid of the f4 variation, not bishop e3. So I chose the safer option, and I had seen a safer option right at the beginning. So I had done some candidate moves, and I knew that there was a safer option. So I was looking at e6 to see if it works. If it doesn't work, I'm going to go to the safer option. What is a safer move that you can see? Weak king in a heavy piece endgame is definitely a huge liability. Aradhya queen a6 and I guess queen a6 and queen e2 would be considered a little bit safe. But so Linden, the other one, yeah, moving the king is what I had looked at. I simply thought I can play king f1, yeah, because after f4 takes, bishop takes, I feel like my rooks are taking care of the key squares, and now I can go for my plan, yeah. So I played king f1, and now black is clearly better. But again, it's not so easy at all. Not every move in a very crazy position like this keeps changing the evaluation, keeps making it very, very interesting. So what should black do? Let's see if anyone can figure out the best continuation for black and what will you do. So the point is very simple, right? You can think of this a little bit like prophylaxis. Yeah. I mean, I have to say definitely prophylaxis, because black at this point has is down. Is up a piece with just one pawn from white. Yeah, so that's really not the problem. The only problem that black is facing is e6 and e7. I'm going to start pushing my pawn up, and if you deliberately try to stop it, I can take on a6 too after that. Yeah. Okay, if you play rook fight d7, let's say I play e6, rook e7, let's say I play queen takes a6, right? Just to show you some simple evaluation, let's say I take this pawn. It seems to me that white is completely safe because I now have my draw. Not only that, I might at some point plan some rook lift. Okay, I cannot play now because queen d1 check, but I have these options, yeah? Maybe there is rook d6, which is still a little interesting. Yeah, possibly rook d6 still a little interesting, but okay, I feel like white is, queen b5 check and queen d5, white is a little safe now. It's not the same like before, yeah? So let's go back. How would you deal with this e5 and e7? E6 and e7, that's all. If you solve this problem, it's good. Everything is over. Black is up material, black has better position, white's king is bad. So bishop g5, e6, and bishop e7 is being considered. Problem is when I move the bishop out to e7, I felt like I'm really giving up on my threat to play f4, right? Seems a little, I don't know, I feel like it's a little too risky for black to completely give up on f4. I want to play f4. Let's see, what else do I get? I got bishop to g5 or bishop to f8 mostly, and rook 5d f5 d7 is there. Queen g5 and queen d7. Again, I'm going to go back to the same point, Alice. I think what you're doing is you're kind of blockading the pawn, but you're letting me take on a6 and you're giving up on your attack completely. Don't forget your queen was on g5. You had to move it out of the way so you can plan f4, you can plan bishop f4 and all those things. So now going back to g5 doesn't make sense. Yeah. If you play e6, rook d6, I can still play something like queen takes d5 and e7. Or e7 directly. I'm going to win that rook. Bishop d2 looks too ambitious. I simply take. I don't see anything going on. Yeah. You can try some f4 after that, but no. So I'll play again, it's not super obvious at all. This is very crazy. So I'll just play this part and show you. So the kind of, the correct move is f4, pawn takes f4, and then here queen f5. I had, again, not seen this. I'm going to be honest with you. And I doubt my opponent saw this either. Because now the idea is I have queen d3 check. And once I put your rook in a pin, then the whole e-pawn becomes easy to handle. So just to show you, let's say I play this. And maybe you can start with rook here, or you can start with the check. And after, let's say I play rook e2. I don't know what else I can play, yeah? Yeah, rook e2. And there is also a simpler block now because you have exposed the king quite a bit, and this pawn is also committed to e6. Now you can go for a simpler move like bishop f8. Because now white doesn't have any defense against rook d6, rook takes e6 kind of ideas. Actually, I won't even do that right away. I'll put my bishop on e7. I'll try to slow play this. Black is completely in bad shape. Yeah. King g1 loses to queen d1 check. Or were you thinking of king g1, the move before? Okay, after queen check, you want to play king g1. What can we do here? I think I would still do the same. Just bishop f8, bishop e7. Since e6 has been committed, right? So I go bishop f8 and bishop e7. And I feel like black is now in control because the positions opened up more. Rook f8 at some point. Actually, no, rook d6 I have to play, and then rook f8. Anyways, this is a little too complicated. I don't want you to get too caught up on this because this is like computer variation. Yeah. Like, once these computer variations will make sense after you see it, there's no way you're identifying this before. So f4 and queen f5 did not even occur to me. So anyways, f4 happened in the game. I just simply took and my opponent took. Bishop takes f4 was played in the game. I played pawn to e6 and he played bishop to d2. Yeah. So now again, I can simply play e7. He takes on e1. I take and probably quite drawish. I made one, so we made a couple of mistakes. Actually, yeah, bishop h2 is also possible, David. You're right. Bishop h2 is probably better, yeah. And he should definitely have done that. So I'll say last question for the day. I mean, we don't. I'm not planning to show you the whole game itself, just the critical part. What does Black play here? This is the last place where Black missed a clear continuation. Okay, bishop takes e3 runs into e7, I think. Okay, rook g5 is possible. What do you think white would do, Lyndon? So Alexander, I'm trying to think of your variation. That looks quite interesting. Yeah. So do I have rook f8? Bishop c3, e7, bishop. Oh, no. Queen g1 is mate. My bad. Yeah. I cannot play rook f8. I don't know if I can play queen takes d5. It's kind of interesting, actually, Alexander. I have to check that variation a little bit more. I'm not so sure here. Rook f5 threatening rook takes f2 is pretty interesting. I think Merrick, Austin have all given me. Rook g5 is also being considered. The problem with rook g5 is I simply take on d2. Unfortunately, that's what happened for my opponent in the game. So I took on d2 and white is fine, completely fine. But rook f5 is the actual strong move, yeah? Yeah, you're hoping for rook takes f2, rook takes f2. But okay, this is quite straightforward. The whole reason I thought this was still interesting is because Black cannot save the rook and the bishop, right? So how does Black actually do that? I mean, rook takes f2, I'm going to take with the king. And queen f4 check, I'm going to block. Then rook e8, correct, yeah. The point is, this is the part of the calculation which I kind of missed, and my opponent also probably missed, is that I don't need to take, I don't need to do anything. Queen f4 check already solved a problem for Black, which was to defend the bishop. So now you can simply move the rook and Black is up a piece and easily winning. So rook f5 was strongest, and after rook f5, I think it's just nothing I can do. Immediately losing. So in the game, rook g5 was played. After it takes here, and then something like this was played. And here I missed b5 again. All of this was in time trouble, so it's not easy to play this position in a time scramble like that. But yeah, towards the end, I just made it like a silly kind of blunder and lost the game. But yeah, so pretty much here we can wrap up, because this is about an equal end game. I mean, if I play d5 here, probably slight advantage, but I played king here, and then we went into an end game like this. So white's actually up a pawn, but Black's pawn on h3 and g6 are too strong. So they're going to definitely give enough compensation. No, I'm not showing you how I lost. Aradhya wants to see how I lost. Let's put it this way. I completely hallucinated and blundered. So, and I'm not going to go over the full details of that. And to me, I'm like, this weekend did not exist in some sense. I'm kind of forgetting it, removing it from my memory in some sense. So I'm not going to painfully go through that loss here. But I thought the game was still so interesting for us to talk about what moves we calculated, what we missed, and how precise calculations are required in crazy positions like this. Yeah. All right. I guess that's a good place for us to wrap up. You have any questions? I actually was thinking 2 games, but I guess this completely took both. Yes, I can definitely open up the chat. I know, of course, you're going to go crazy with that. What's the chance you win these positions playing on intuition? I think that's not a good option. I mean, you need intuition to calculate. So typically what you do with your intuition is, Austin, you pick the move that makes the most sense. But then you calculate, right? You cannot do anything without calculation in a position like this. Almost impossible to do it, because you cannot, I mean, at some point you're going to run out of luck. You can keep saying, oh, this looks good, I'll play it. But at some point you're going to run out of that luck. And a move that looks good is going to turn out to be terrible because in calculation. Austin, this sounds like a different kind of cheating. Took your pawn sideways. I don't think chess.com allows that. Kevin, whose game are you asking? I'm sure you're asking the pawn capture sideways. No interest in the calculation in this game here. All right, guys. I think that's a good place for us to wrap up. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you in one of the classes in the future. Bye-bye.